Thanks for being here, Bobby. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Small Biz Real Talk. I'm Mackenzie Tamayo with the SBDC. We're thrilled that you're here today. If you're new here, we like to pop into small businesses here around town and learn the nitty-gritty. We want to know the ins and outs of starting a small business, and we're so thankful that we can be here for free, thanks to ABC Bank being our sponsor. We also have the Business Journal as our media sponsor. So before we hop in, we're in this beautiful, gorgeous, one-year-old hotel. So we're here at Kinship Landing. I'm here with Bobby and Nate. Guys, this is amazing in here, and we're so glad that you're here in this community. So tell us a little bit about yourselves and about Kinship and how it started.
Sure, yeah, I was born and raised here in Colorado Springs. My wife and I met in high school, and we kind of boomeranged back to Colorado Springs in 2010. Fell back in love with the city, kind of saw it in a new lens for all of the opportunity and resources that were here. Outdoor recreation assets, business opportunity, social opportunity, and really fell in love with this place, with the community, with the culture. So that's a little bit of just leading to the point of 2016, where Brooke and I, my wife, decided to spend some time traveling. We took about a year off, really with the intent of stepping back and asking what's next in life, what do we have to offer that's unique, and we ended up deciding to come back to Colorado Springs with the seedling of an idea for a unique hospitality concept that was deeply inspired by our travels, by our passion and commitment to community development here in Colorado Springs. And we hit the ground running in 2017. Nate was one of our very first calls when we knew that what we had in mind was something we could never do on our own. So we knew we had to surround ourselves with folks who were much more competent and balanced than we were. So Nate was one of our first calls, along with Jason, and we got connected with Lauren. Those were the 5 co-founders. And kind of our first step was to talk about this idea for a new kind of hospitality with anyone that would listen. So we would introduce ourselves. Hi, my name is Bobby. We're building a hotel in Colorado Springs. And that would inevitably lead to conversation. And the idea was refined and molded and shaped by the feedback we got from the community, by our co-founders, Nate and Jason. And 2017 to 18 were really those development years of refining the business model, raising capital, selecting a location, and figuring out what would actually contribute to the thriving of downtown compared to just an idea that we had. So I'm not sure how you would answer that question. Background, a little bit about you.
Yeah, it all starts with friendship. Bobby and I, fun fact, Bobby was best man at my wedding. Brooke was one of our bridesmaids. So it's all been founded on friendship. We joined them on their trip a few times around the world. So in Iceland, saw a lot of inspiration on really cool hospitality concepts, but really the concept of giving people a local community feel when they stay at a hotel, rather than it just being another place to lay your head at night, right? And there's hotels that are the chains that fill a great spot in the community of business transient and a need for just a great place to stay. Kinship Landing is a little bit more than that, and it was inspired by the time that we've had together adventuring in Uray, ice climbing, enjoying time internationally in Iceland, and finding out how do we give that local feel to everybody that walks through this door, right? The front door of Kinship Landing is really just this channel to give them the best of the Colorado Springs, hence the landing piece, right? So my background is in hospitality. I functioned as being a part of a really cool project up in Denver that was hospitality. It was associated with a university and a fully functioning Spring Hill Suites that was very unique. And so when Bobby and Brooke came back, and we just kind of nerded out on the hospitality side and came up with Kinship along with Jason and the culture that he helped us create here. So yeah, it's all, I mean, if I can sum it up, it's all friendship that brought us here. So.
And then how long, so you have this idea, right? And you're telling everybody this idea, anybody that'll listen, right? So you have it, then what? So then how do you find the piece of land? What are the next steps? So kind of walk me through the process of, we've got the business model, now what?
Sure, we knew we wanted to be downtown. For us, that was important. We've kind of committed to this idea of an economic and cultural hub is really important for a region, and of course that's going to expand. So once we kind of put a stake in the ground that we're going to be downtown, that meant that this thing was real. We had some serious vested interest from Nate and Brooke and Jason and the founders, we were now all in, so to speak. And so the next step for us is let's go find some partners. Before we purchased the land, we spent a lot of time defining what our core values were going to be, the lens by which we make decisions. So everything is filtered through our 5 core values of courage, trust, community, adventure, and generosity. And those values are what we led with as we went to seek capital partners. We raised capital through a combination of private and conventional debt, but that was really the next step. We've got the land, we have a viable asset. Let's go find some financial partners who, number 1, align with our values. Number 2, can see the vision and the passion for a community development project first and foremost. And number 3, who are looking to partner with us on a business model that they can see pencils and makes sense long term.
Tell me a little bit more about those 5 core values and how you came up with those.
Sure. I know Nate and I could both talk your ear off about these. I mean, I feel like we've found the success that we have over the last year, and it's new, we're young still, because of 2 things. One of them is the community that said yes to this project. The other one is we've been really committed to those values, and I'm not a professional at generosity or courage or trust, but when we talk about those things so publicly and so forwardly, we are giving permission to the world to hold us accountable to those values. So we've led with those in every conversation. And courage, trust, community, adventure, generosity, we have these belief statements that really define what those mean to us and what those actions are. So just real quick, courage means that we choose to do what is right in the face of challenges. It's never a question, it's kind of gray area. Let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing. Trust means that we believe people are inherently good. We extend a lot of trust to our staff. We extend a lot of trust to our guests. We know that that bites you in the butt sometimes, so we measure for that and we calculate and we budget for that. But the currency of trust yields massive dividends if you're willing to extend it, and you're taxed if you aren't. Community, we know that that means we belong together. So we're bringing people from all over the world together in a shared space with people who live here, and that exchange of values and story is really meaningful and deeply important to what we're up to here. Adventure means that we choose to do things that encourage us to grow. That might be the incline for the first time. That might be raising a couple $1,000,000 for the first time, or converting a bunk room to a new kind of room. Adventure is something that guides us. And then finally, generosity is just a core conviction that there's more than enough to go around, so we look for ways to share it. And that word enough means sometimes the plenty needs to come down and the scarcity needs to go up, so there's that balancing and that redistribution. So we're always looking for ways to express generosity of our time, of our attention, of our resources.
That's great. So what were some of the biggest obstacles that you found initially?
Really quickly, we noticed how much the community was bought in for a concept like this. That was unique. That was uniquely Colorado Springs. It wasn't a Denver. It wasn't a Pueblo. It was built for Colorado Springs, and it was informed by the people of Colorado Springs. So pretty quickly, when we were going out for the equity raise, that was a little bit easier than we expected it to be. And not to say that it was easy, but it was easier than we thought it would be. Some of the main difficulties that we ran in pretty quickly is an unflagged startup boutique hotel with unproven founders. Those are all 4-letter words to banks, and the number of banks I think that we approached throughout this community was incredible, it was a new concept. And so whenever you're bringing in these kind of new innovative concepts, you're gonna kind of run into the struggle of the way things have always been done. And so it was a fun experience just to see that whether we've been a part of it or not, like Colorado Springs has changed a ton over the last 5 years in the lending industry, in the lending environment, in being interested in really cool concepts like Kawadi and bread and butter right down the street that typically aren't the ones that a traditional bank would say that's a very low risk investment. We'll invest in that. So that was one of the big challenges that we had just right away, was getting a banking partner involved, and there's more we could go into with that, but that was a lot of sleepless nights and figuring out exactly how to get that on board. But
I think if I can just add to that, I agree with Nate. One of the biggest, if not the biggest challenge, was a lending partner to link up with our equity. And I'm really happy to see those changes Nate's referencing here in Colorado Springs. As a lending institution, you can't make decisions that don't align with your values. And as we grow as a community, we are going to have to continue to embrace innovation and concepts that aren't proven in the same way other concepts in the world are. And if we're just a small drop in the bucket to be able to help our community embrace innovation, embrace something that is unique and deeply contextualized to Colorado Springs from a lending perspective, then that's a win for us to be just a small part in creating that wake for other businesses that are proven quality, led by competent individuals and teams. Of course, check all those boxes, but I'd love to continue to see Colorado Springs locally owned businesses be embraced by the lending community despite a 20-year proven track record.
Right, that's huge. And I know Jackie, who's with ABC Bank, could speak probably to a lot of those things. She can be with us today, but let's switch gears a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the legal aspects of your business. So how you registered, the process that you had. Did you hire a lawyer?
We did. We hired a lawyer right away. We knew that was something we wanted to take very seriously. We wanted to make sure that we were respectful of our community and ourselves, protecting ourselves. We're an LLC. And I'll let Nate speak a little bit of why we chose that business model and what that process looked like.
Yeah, we always knew that we wanted to have a very local ownership structure. So we have a few dollars that came from out of the direct community, but all local to Colorado, all local to the region. And one of the reasons why we decided to be an LLC is because we wanted that pass-through. We don't have any plans to become that C Corp that's going to have shareholders and it's going to go public at some time. We want this to be uniquely informed by each community that it's in. And within specifically hospitality, there's a lot of legal structures typically that you have, whether from the operating company. We happen to be the whole thing, right? Owner, operator, starter, founder, developer, et cetera. I'm sure there's a few other titles that I'm forgetting in there throughout the process, but the housekeeper, right? LLC lends that ability very well to have that pass through to our founders. So, or not just our founders, but our investors, and so they get to participate in the income as well as the losses for tax purposes. And then one other benefit from not being on that C Corp status is that you don't have that double taxation that you would see both on the corporate side and then on the personal side once you were distributing to investors. So again, we built this business not just for ourselves. One of the things that we talk about is that this isn't our hotel. This is the community's hotel. It's our investors' hotel. And that's why we were so specific in the people we invited along in the process to invest financially and partner with us, is so that they can see the same benefits that we would see as founders. So within that structure, there's a few different companies within that, both on the operating side and the owning of the real estate side. Functionally, it's all us, but it's a little bit more of a complex entity with hospitality and real estate because you have so many different pieces of the business, whether on the development, the real estate asset, and the management side. So
that's great. I think too, something we should touch on is that you have a restaurant and then you have the hotel. So can you talk to me a little bit to kind of like the legal aspects or how you set up the business that way? Because you're together, but you're not. So kind of, can you speak to a little bit of that?
Yeah, it's a very atypical way that we've structured our first floor with Homa, incredible restaurant. We partnered with a great individual who owns Tapateria, Pizzeria Rustica, Jay Gust with Ascent Restaurant Group, has kind of come on as our consultant. So for the most part, just to sum it pretty easily, it's all kinship. It's all one thing. And Homa functions as kind of our food and beverage department. So then Jay is our, if you want to call it our kind of consulting food and beverage director. He's the one that gives us the confidence to, neither one of us wanted to own a restaurant. For anybody that's watching that owns a restaurant, we have so much incredible just compliments for you. It's a very risky business and it's not easy. And so very early on we said we don't want to own a restaurant. But Jay kind of was with us in that process, and so it's come to a place of really realizing that Homa isn't separate from Kinship like we kind of thought it would be originally, that it was going to be a partnership where we would rub shoulders every once in a while, and it's really, Homa is kind of the front door for Kinship Landing, right? So you come in and the first place that you interact with our values is our staff up front, Emmy and Jenna and the people that work for Homa. They're the ones that are greeting the guests sometimes for the first time, as well as our front desk hosts. So for all intents and purposes, it's one entity, but we kind of treat them as a different department within that entity. So.
Can I rewind a second,
Yeah.
just answer the legal question in a slightly different way? One of the things I was thinking about is just, did we use any people or resources on the legal side of things, and do we have any advice on the legal side? And just a big learning, growing thing, we worked with a consultant right off the bat. We hired someone who's built and sold many businesses over the course of his life. And we were really lucky to be connected with resources at the Small Business Development Center who kind of talked us through those ways of thinking, but really slowing down when you're building out the business model, including the operating agreement, your board, your decision-making structures, the structure of the business. Those are things that if you don't do that right up front, you will be adjusting those. You'll probably inevitably be adjusting those, but it's just time, resources, energy away from your passion and from the mission of your business if you've got to go back and rethink that stuff. So if there's just one piece of advice that I think we were really lucky to get early on, is to build the foundation, the legal foundation of your business, so that that's there for you to stand on, and then you can go operate in your passion. This was not like a 3-day retreat where we came up with it. This was 3 to 4 months of operating agreement and legal structure before we even considered purchasing property.
Yeah, that was my next question, is any advice? Because I always think in hindsight you can always see something a little bit better, right? So marketing a space, I always tell businesses it's hard to market a space when you have no space to show, right? So how do you talk to me a little bit about branding and marketing a space as you're building, and kind of the narrative you wanted to have for the space?
Yeah, that's a great observation. It's been really fun to shift in the last year to say, why don't you come see what we're up to? But for those first 4 years, we talked about something that was not real yet. And as the entrepreneurs and owners, for us, it was as real as it would ever be. But we talked about a space that helped locals and travelers connect to each other. And I think really we marketed the space by identifying the needs that we were filling, the needs that we were meeting. And those were two things: a place to sleep that was experience-driven quality in the downtown urban core, and a place to connect and belong. And that place of belonging and connection, we think of our staff as our first audience. We think of the community of Colorado Springs as our second most important customer, audience, guest. So we built this place for the city of Colorado Springs and for the people who live here. That's why when you come in here on any given day, 90% of the people in the Homa Cafe and Bar are people who live and work and play here in Colorado Springs. So attaching our marketing story to a need that was deeply felt by people who live here made it easy for us to find buy-in. I'd love to find a place where I could connect with thoughts about business, thoughts about entrepreneurship, thoughts about outdoor adventure, people from all over the world with unique perspectives. That sounds like something I would anchor myself to.
That's wonderful. And then kind of to piggyback off of the marketing, so how did you decide you came up with the marketing strategy, how? And who was involved in that?
Sure. On the marketing side, I probably took a lead on our team. We all have different alleys and lanes that we run in, but that was probably the one that I took lead on more than other founders, Nate, Brooke, and Jason. I come from a marketing and sales background, so there's that anchor there. But really, for us, one thing we're great at is listening and surrounding ourselves with people that are way smarter than we are. One of our kind of core competencies at the executive level is getting the right people to the table. And so we spent a lot of time listening. I would knock on any and every door of hotels, hospitality concepts, Airbnbs that were doing great, bungalows and homestays and hostels. We went to collectives and gatherings of hostel owners across the state and tapped into resources in New Zealand, and we listened. We kind of packaged a loose plan and said, here's where we're aiming, and then we let people just attack that thing and poke holes in it, and then adjusted and tweaked as needed. So that was really our approach, is gain as much feedback as we could, tighten it up, and then do a couple things really well. As a startup, you don't have a ton of resources, so you can't really do flyers and commercials and website and social and PR. You can't do all of that really well. So we targeted a few things that we would go all the way in, which makes it really easy for us to say yes when those opportunities align, and it makes it a really quick, we'd love to, but it's not the right fit for us to take out a billboard because it's just not in our strategy. We can't do it all the way well.
And I think we've touched on this a little bit, but so as you're talking to different people and you're learning, I like this, not so much for us, sharing those types of things, you're coming up with your own elevator pitch in a lot of ways. So tell me, like, if somebody says, what's Kinship and why should I care?
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you have this idea, it's crystal clear in your mind. And you start talking about it and you realize they're not tracking. So we spend a lot of time figuring out what words do we use. And yeah, so we've got those phrases. Kinship Landing is a friendly boutique hotel that connects locals and travelers around the city and outdoor exploration. So we're here to connect people. That's our pitch. We are a friendly boutique hotel, and we landed on that phrase because it really defines we're a hotel, a friendly boutique hotel.
And then as far as, kind of your launching and do you hire PR people? Do you have social media people? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go back to the hero of the community. We are sitting in these seats, but any one of 50 or 100 people could probably represent the project well. And it's because we were careful to do that active listening, that community engagement piece. And so we've got champions for this company and for Kinship Landing and Homa all over town. Our outreach, our PR, we did hire people, but we also had a ton of support of folks who said, I believe in what you're doing. The hospitality space needs to be shaken up. We've got to learn to embrace tourists in Colorado Springs with a generous and authentic heart and posture. So we had folks step up and say, I'd love to donate some of my services for 1 month. And that was a great trial period for us to learn. And then we would hire. We do have a PR firm that we work with. We work with the communications agency. You mentioned the branding and creative. Nate and Brooke and I would probably love to do that, but guess what? The magic of the branding of Kinship is not us. It comes from Fixer Creative and collaboration and conversation. So yeah, we surround ourselves, and we continue to surround ourselves with folks who are operating at a world-class level and can link up and partner with us.
So the nuances of a hotel business, especially a boutique hotel business, seem complex in a lot of ways, right? Because you talk a lot about the locals, but also the tourists. So what are some of the nuances of, the hospitality industry, but specifically hotels that you have found?
Sure. Nate, if you've got anything here, feel free to chime in. Yeah, I mean, another one we could talk your ear off. Hospitality has been around since there was no room at the inn, right? In the year 0 AD.
Yeah.
So it's an industry that has got a ton of proven systems, and it also can be challenging to change and lean on that rudder. We've noticed that some of the nuances of this industry in particular is things are done a certain way. And there's a reason. There are certain size hotels, certain margins on those sizes. So that's one of the things we noticed right away is trying to shake up that mold was going to prove challenging. It was going to create a niche potentially for us, but it was not easy to try and break the mold of an industry that's been around for such a long time.
And then too, I think, and Nate can talk too, I just think boutique hotel, what does that even mean, right? So like when when people hear a hotel and they hear boutique hotel, we can talk about that a little bit later, but what does that mean and how is that different than like, a Marriott?
Totally. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's that what we in the industry we call flagged hotel, right? There's a lot of benefit that comes from that. You have a centralized service that you can tap into from accounting, from marketing, from franchising, support services, from reservation systems, all of that. So we weren't able to tap into that. We literally were starting from scratch in a lot of ways. Finding our property management system. How many property management systems work for a hotel that has both shared bunk rooms and private room options? That was a really difficult thing for us to find. And so we honestly walked through some of these PMSs to help their product change to help us. Same with, we have very contactless entry. We want you to come down and see us at the front desk. But if you want to just head up to your room and plug in your code, you get a text right before you check in, and you don't have to see anybody if you don't want to. But we intentionally try and draw people down to the first floor because that's where the magic happens.
Right.
And so, the Spring Hill Suites and the Element that's going in, right down the street on Tejon, they're going to be able to tap into things that we didn't have the ability to tap into. And that's great for them. That's also great for us. We were able to express our freedom, our creativity in new ways that kind of, as Bobby said, this is a very long-standing institution of hospitality and industry, and we got to shake that up a little bit in small ways, right? We're by no means changing the way that people sleep. People have been sleeping the same for a long time, but if we can tap into that desire for belonging with Kinship Landing a little bit differently than you would see at a franchised or a flagged hotel, and it's a way to reflect the community, right? Not that you can't have a flagged hotel reflect the community as much, but when the operator lives here and the creator lives here, like it gives you a little bit different of a type of hospitality that comes in. But it also comes with challenges. We will say that for the first and foremost.
Right. Right. Anything else you want to add, Bob?
Yeah, the other thing I would add is hospitality is far-reaching. People think of hotels now when you say the hospitality industry, but hospitality includes Airbnb. It includes hosting your sister on your couch for the weekend. It includes thinking through what your après beers are going to look like after ski touring. All of that is hospitality. And I think a holistic look at the hospitality experience is one of the things that kind of separates us from some folks is, yes, it's a great place to sleep and a great place to grab a meal, but it really is thinking through that unified hospitality experience from start to finish. So yeah.
One of my favorite things you've said, Bobby, is, we want, if you have family or friends from out of town, we want them to stay with you first. But if they can't, we'd love to have them here. And I think that's a really great depiction of what kinship is it's like, we'd love it if you could do it with your family, and if you can't, like, come here. So I think that's a way you guys have really reached out. So tell us a little bit about your competition. Do you feel like there is competition, or do you feel like you're just different than anything in the area?
Yeah, a little bit of yes to both of those questions. For sure, there's competition in the area. We've seen new properties come online in the last 2 years and more to come in the years to come. So absolutely, there's competition for a place to sleep in downtown Colorado Springs. And really great competition. Some wonderful properties, some wonderful operators. One of the kind of metrics from the last year we're very proud of is 80% of our bookings are direct through our website. So we're not competing with Expedia and some of those other online travel agencies in the same way that other properties become dependent on. So I do believe we are creating a bit of a niche where we stand out enough amongst some other hotels that have a more traditional model where, like, the filter of price might not be the highest filter for our guests, because they are looking for that insertion into the local scene. And being able to bump shoulders with 30 to 40 locals at your check-in desk is valuable to our guests. Our trail recommendations that are scrolling on our TV, and the local music and art that's going on that we all enjoy personally, and it comes from the mining of the knowledge and the data from our staff. I think that sets us apart in some ways. But in the same breath, the word boutique is thrown around like crazy. We've seen brands starting to rebrand and try and capture some of that boutique market. We've also seen boutiques pop up all over the United States that are authentic to that word. I mean, truly an expression of the local community. And I think there will be continued competition. There's a reorienting of traditional hospitality happening across the world, but especially in the United States. As we all remember, we want something authentic. We want something with some grit and texture that feels like a true expression of the places we're visiting, not just a place that's going to be consistent everywhere I go throughout the world. So a little bit of yes and no. I think there's definitely competition, and I think folks who are here for what we offer uniquely are going to find us stand out pretty quickly.
So you have an assortment of rooms here. You have bunk rooms, you've got mountain suites, you've got junior suites, all sorts of things. How did you come up with that? So how did you come up with, this is the way I want the room to look, this is how I want it to feel, this is the layout, this is kind of the thought process? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure, Nate, I'm sure you can add a ton of comments here. I mean, one of the things I'll just respond to right away. When we traveled, we had a $53 a day budget, including lodging, food, travel, entertainment, and our space is beautiful. We're really proud of the aesthetic and the design and the experience, and we wanted to make sure that experience would be accessible to people like us who are taking a 3-week backpacking trip across the West. So our bunk rooms are an easy way to have an incredible night's sleep on the same tufted needle mattress as our king suites, and you wake up with an extra $200 in your pocket that you wouldn't have if you were staying in a private room. So one of them was just accessibility. We wanted to make sure that the modern traveler could access this community asset without having to blow their whole lodging budget in one weekend. The other thing I would say is we wanted to provide a world-class lodging experience where when you enter your room, you get that sort of pause of this is really special. That amazing experience I just had on Pikes Peak, this world-class, it's continuing when I check into my hotel. It's continuing when I lay my head down to rest. So the process of designing those rooms, really it started with Nate, Brooke, Jason, and I cooking up some mood boards and some layouts. And then yet again, we surround ourselves with people who are more qualified, more experienced than us, And Echo Architecture and Fixer Creative and Garrett Brown Designs took those functional desires and they put them into something that could actually work in a building. What else would you say about the design and layout of the rooms?
Yeah, we loved mood boards, Pinterest. I mean, a lot of it was informed by that travel that we had. It's a very modern Scandinavian feel in here. What some of the inspiration came while we were in Iceland traveling as a founding team, and to be able to bring that feel of kind of a more of a European style to Colorado Springs, where it's a little bit nuanced and different. But I mean, Bobby hit the nail on the head. Like, it was a growing, the idea that we had from the beginning of what it was going to look like completely changed to where, not completely, but changed and evolved into what it is. The greenhouse being added, and one of my favorite parts of the whole first floor, and just being able to bring the outside in, and the north yard, and having that be kind of this community outdoor space. So it's a growing thing, and we really owe a lot to the people whose shoulders we've stood on, of Echo Architecture and the design team and Fixer and the Garrett Brown, who did the amazing millwork for us. So
one of the things we say over and over, this goes back to just knowing what we're good at and what other heroes can meet better than we can in the community. We talk about our rooms and we say we've got everything you need and nothing you don't. It's going to be an amazing place to sleep, maybe fix a cup of coffee from our local coffee partner, and then come enjoy the space down here. So our rooms are not amenity heavy. There's not a lot going on in there, except for it's going to be inspiring, beautiful, comfortable, and very efficient. One of the observations we took from overseas is that countries that don't have the excess of real estate that we have in this country are super creative with their use of space.
Yeah.
I remember using a sink that drained to a bathroom toilet, and then the water was recycled. This was in Iceland. The bathroom was maybe 4 feet by 3 feet, and it had everything I needed. So our rooms are a little bit more compact. They're a little bit more efficient use of space, and the aim is to give you the comfort and function that you need and help you find your way down here to co-work and meet and mingle and hang out.
I love that. So the next questions are for Nate, probably, so financial questions. This is always kind of the tricky questions, right? Nobody really likes to talk about the financials, but talk to me a little bit about kind of the startup. You talked about investors and those types of things, but what has been that you have found from starting until now, what you've learned in the process of financials and ways you've had to shift?
yeah, get a group of investors that believe in the concept, that aren't just looking for a great return. We're giving a great return, but don't just look for the people that are looking to get what they can get out of the project, what they can provide to the project. The amount of cheerleaders that we have on our team, of about 20 investors that are in the community. I mean, we had money that we could have easily taken. Didn't match our values. We decided pretty quickly that we're going to be intentional with the people that we bring on as part of the team, and that has been just proving dividends throughout the whole build process. As we have delays, we have teammates rather than people that are, breathing down our necks and saying, "Hey, when am I getting my return back?" And we've taken care of our investors, but I would just suggest get people that are going to be your cheerleaders as part of your capital stack. Do as much as debt as you can. It's the cheap money, if you will, right? And find a great lending partner that is also going to be a fan of you. We're working with, I know it's sponsored by another bank, but I have to brag on our lending partner, First National Bank. Dave Wood has just been an incredible cheerleader for this project when a lot of people overlooked because of the risk of being non-flagged and being a smaller hotel than most hotels, like the 300-400 room hotels. So just get people that are on your team, people that match, that want to go where you're going, is the main thing that I would say. And then be agile. Don't be willing to hold on to too much of something, right? A little bit of something that happens is way better than all of something that never happens. So invite people into the process with you, and have that generous mentality, that get rid of that scarcity mentality and mindset of I have to hold on to as much as I can. Now, control, that's another thing, and that touches more on the legal side, but from a perspective of equity, just don't try and make all your money on one project. Invite people into the process with you, and you'll go way further. A phrase that I say frequently is if you want to go quickly, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with people. And that has proved so true with us, that we have gone so much further with the people that have been in our in our corner than people that we would just take because we needed their money at the time. And yeah, it took a little bit longer, right, than it would have if we just took the quick, we're gonna, maybe we aren't make those courageous decisions, and we take that money that's a little bit not aligned with our values. But so that I would say, hands down, get people that are in your corner, that believe in your values, that want to see you go far.
How did you strategize your pricing structure? How did you determine that?
Yeah. So there's a company called Smith Travel Research that's a big thing. So as we were analyzing the market, seeing what occupancies look like, what's the demand. So in Colorado Springs, when we first started, we thought we were off our rocker, kind of, in the sense of like, new hotels hadn't been built in Colorado Springs in decades, right, in downtown. And so here we are starting a new hotel that's not just a new hotel in Colorado Springs, but it's a new brand. It's never been seen in this community. And so we did a ton of market analysis. I mean, we weren't going to sign the check of our life savings over to something that wasn't going to work, or that we didn't have a good idea that was going to work. So we did a ton of research, and Smith Travel Research for the hospitality industry is a great benchmarking tool that we were able to look at. Here's what a junior queen suite would typically go for. But we were able to be a little bit more creative with our pricing structure because we just have a different product from everything else that you're going to see around here. So, without getting too nerdy, is, when we look at our benchmarking reports, it's hard to compare because there's no real industry similar or any property similar to us in this area. But to be able, like Bobby said, to provide that kind of 3 different entry levels for people at Kinship is people that just want to have a great place to sleep, an easiest way to find friendship and adventure. Stay in our bunks. You're getting a great night's sleep for $40, $50 a night. And then if you want to elevate your experience, you can go all the way up to our King Suites that are, you're going to be hard pressed to find anything as cool as our King Suites in Colorado, I think. So we have people that would typically stay at the Broadmoor that won't stay anywhere but Kinship Landing. So we're kind of filling that niche of just people wanting to have that gritty. So
that's great. Any other final comments on financials or best practices that you have found in this?
I think we could probably go on for hours about that. That's been kind of the biggest story for Kinship, is just finding people that would sign on to, specifically on the lending institution. And if there's anything that we can encourage banks to do, is just take the risk on the people that are doing things that are competent. Don't take dumb risks, but people that are doing things competent, that are bringing something to the community that's needed, that the filter of what's going to happen in this community and the amount of growth that's going to happen is tied to the level of risk that banks will take on new innovative concepts. No ifs, ands, or buts. There's people that have been champions for this city. I think of people like Kathy Liu that have taken risks on concepts that probably she shouldn't have. And Colorado Springs is the city that it is now because of those people. And if we can transfer some of that innovative future thinking to our banking institutions, we'll be headed in a great direction. Another thing, take a look at TIF. TIF was a huge piece for us, tax increment financing. If you're in the downtown area, it's an investment in the city in really cool new concepts, whether it's multifamily or hospitality. Look for those grants, look for those tools that you can find a little bit more for your capital stack, so you're not having to give quite as much away of your company, you're not having to get quite as much debt. And so that's another big piece is TIF. There's some environmentally friendly tax credits that you can go after. So don't just go the traditional route of, typical capital stack is you have this amount of equity and you have this amount of debt. Try and find it from elsewhere and kind of build that in revenue stream wise for your capital stack.
Just very practically, I mean, it's clear Nate is an incredible asset to our team on the finance side. And for me, just super practical financial advice. Figure out your budget. Don't tell anyone. Double it. Seriously, double it. And start with the budget that's not doubled when you go out for bids on contractors and architects. And if you get to the point where you're that smart, you actually built a budget that didn't need to double, then you're going to have margin. You can redistribute that. But we were so smart. We just knew our budget was cushioned and padded, and we had contingencies that no one knew about, and still our costs doubled. literally doubled. So for anyone out there looking to build a business, double your budget. Don't tell anyone you did that, and double your timeline, the amount of time it's going to take.
So true. So in a post-COVID, I guess we're still in it, world, hiring is a whole thing, especially in the hospitality industry. We saw a mass exodus in this industry during that time. And so now you need to hire an entire hotel staff. So what was the process for you for hiring, and how did you come up with that?
Yeah, Nate and I both look at each other like, I wish Brooke was here.
I know.
Brooke served as our general manager the last year. She's also our COO and one of our the co-founders, and she's got a lot of credit for the team that has been drawn to and built here at Kinship Landing. I will just say we had a pretty non-traditional approach to recruiting and hiring. Culture is the first gate that you've got to get through at Kinship Landing, and then there are other gates, qualifications and experience, but if that alignment with values and that cultural amplitude isn't there, it's going to be really hard for us to get excited about candidates. I think what happened is, as Brooke continued to talk about our values and the mission and the vision of what we're up to, people began to resonate with that. And so much of the recruitment strategy for our hotel came because people were attracted to the values. They were attracted to the culture and the mission. And what that has yielded is deeply loyal and committed individuals who take ownership of this place. The magic of Kinship has so much to do with the people, and it's not Nate and Brooke and I. It's the people who come here to eat and drink, and it's the people who interact daily. So we're really proud of the retention that we have in our staff. We're really proud of the expression of the individuals' personality and tastes, and it has been hard. Hospitality has been tricky the last 2 years, and we just feel very, very fortunate that people have found their way to the values that we continue to try and strive to exemplify.
You talk again about your core values, but a little bit about who you are as a leader. So how do you lead, and why is that important?
Sure. I probably err more on the agile style of leadership, and that can be deeply perturbing and frustrating for people who aren't used to that sort of quick pivot, minimum viable product. It doesn't always apply to the industry you're working in, but personally, that tends to be where I lean, and that allows me to embrace a certain level of risk that not everyone's comfortable with. Nate, I'm sure, can speak to that as well. The first 3 years, we had to really be agile and change up our capital stack and change up our structure. But I also think trust being one of our core values, we delegate a lot of authority. We try to delegate a lot of authority and trust to our staff. And what that does is it provides them a chance to learn by failing. It provides them an opportunity to feel empowered and trusted. And so as managers and leaders, I think Nate, Brooke, and I, and our general manager and our managers on site here, we all really try to impart that trust on the people that we lead so that they can take ownership. And what you see is when you're an owner of something, you have a vested interest, and creativity starts to come and passion starts to come. So generally speaking, I'd say we're pretty autonomous in our leadership style. We allow quite a bit of freedom, and we do measure results. We give a lot of feedback.
Any thoughts on that, Nate?
I was just going to say that the mark of a good leader is the quality of the people that will follow you, I think, and the way that you can support them. We are very much not the lead from the front, be the ones telling people how to do everything. It's get the right people at the table, empower them to make the decisions that they need to, and we're here to, if anything, be a support for our staff. One of the things we talk about that we're a lot different from typical hotels is we're more focused on our staff than we are on the guests typically, and that's our job, right? If we're giving our staff an ability to feel like they're part of a family, that is going to translate to the community that walks in the door, the guests that are staying upstairs. And so if we can take care of them and empower them, that's hands down the best way that we can be leaders, is kind of set vision and then step out of the way and let the other people run after that vision. And so, as Bobby said, very autonomous. I just pinch myself every time I think of the leaders that we have here on staff, that any one of them I know hesitant to say this, don't listen to other hotels, but like any other hotel would be jealous to have the quality of people that we have on staff here, and our retention shows it. I mean, in a housekeeping department, you typically have 50% turnover in 6 months. Like, we've had 2 people leave since we opened over a year ago, and it's because that culture that we've created, that they can make their own decisions. They don't have to be told, hey, you've got 13 minutes to clean this room, get it done, or X, Y, or Z. We work with them, and they're the ones that are helping define those benchmarks and et cetera. So,
Sorry to hog the microphone here a little bit, but this is really important to us.
Yep.
Our staff and our people. We talked earlier about the staff kind of being our first hero that we think about, and so we give them the opportunity to express themselves. There's kind of 2 quotes that we anchored ourselves to early on. One is just, if you love your dream, people are going to feel that in a negative way. Whoever's in love with their dream for community or their dream for business, people are going to be in the wake of that dream. The people who go in and love people, they're going to foster that dream, foster that community. So we really aim to care for the people in front of us. And then there's another incredible community developer, one of my heroes, John Perkins, and he quotes this quote from the East. I'm going to butcher it, but it goes something like, go to the people, live among them, listen to them, and in the end, they will proclaim, we have done it ourselves. And if in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, no one knows the backstory of Kinship or the founders' names, but they say those staff, those guys behind the bar, those housekeepers, that community of Colorado Springs has done something really cool in Kinship Landing. That's what we're aiming for.
I love that. All right, to recap, so Nate, maybe give us your hardest story or situation, or something you can tell business owners, really like be cognizant of this, and then I want to hear your most rewarding experience that you've had with Kinship.
do I get to do both, or does Bobby get the
You get to do
rewarding?
both. And then I want to hear from Bobby too.
Yeah, the hardest, honestly, there was a time where we had just, I'll pull the curtain away a little bit. I'm thinking about our groundbreaking. Hey guys, we had the mayor coming out for our groundbreaking the next day. Bobby, Brooke, and I are out cleaning the land. There was weeds as tall as our heads on it. There was an old restaurant before we bought this land, and we've got all of our budget, we've gone out to subs 3 times now, and we've got our full construction budget. We've got a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price on there, and we're out there cleaning the land, and we get a call from our GC. Hey guys, are you sitting down? And I said, I don't want to hear that from my GC. Thanks, but no, we're not. And so he just, we're cleaning up the land for our groundbreaking. That's tomorrow. Anyway, we could call, hey guys, you're $2 million over budget from what we told you. Okay, so that's a good 40% over budget from what we had our GMP, what we'd gone out. And so that started just a chain of events where we either had to double down and say, this is really worth it, what we're bringing to the community, or we had to say, we're probably not going to make as much money personally as we thought we were going to, so we're out. And so we really had to double down on the vision, the mission of Kinship Landing, put our money where our mouth is. Is this truly, is this to make money for us and get us rich, or is this to be a community asset? And so we very quickly, without getting in too much detail, we held a lot of equity, and this goes to what I was saying earlier. Don't hold on to everything to prevent something from happening. We had to distribute that out. We had to bring other partners involved, and we had to invite people into the story that weren't originally in the story. And that was not easy. I mean, this is a baby that we birthed or hadn't birthed yet, but that was growing, and to get that gut punch, before we'd even broken ground, and say, okay, do we cancel with the mayor? Do we cancel with Susan? Do we whatever? And we decided, no, we're doubling down, we're going to make this happen because we really believe in this mission, this vision of kinship. We truly believe that this is what the community need, and we're going to do what we need to make it happen. So we very quickly had to restructure some stuff, work on our OA. We had to go out for additional financing, change a lot of that. So that was honestly the hardest part of kinship is, at the time, felt like we were giving up our child kind of thing. And listen, we still have plenty of kinship, and this is worth it for us and our families. I'm not saying that, do something that's going to put you in financial strain so that you're never going to recover, but maybe don't put so much emphasis on having to, own 100%, own 90%, whatever. If you truly believe in the concept and the numbers pencil, just make it happen, and then keep going. And And then I would say the most rewarding thing I think we talk about most is just the family that we've created here at Kinship. Now the authority that the trust, I guess, that the community has given us to be as a voice in the community. We didn't have that 3-4 years ago, and now we have the ability to inform a few things here, inform a few things there. We have people that start businesses on our first floor. We have a conference room. We had nowhere to pitch to investors when we were first starting up. I think Loyal was probably our Loyal Coffee was the #1 spot, and we, would be on our computer just clicking through slides. And so we wanted to provide that on-ramp for other businesses that could kind of follow along. And one of my mentors, he talks about that the first one through the wall gets the most bloody. Whether we were the first through the wall or maybe we're giving ourselves too much credit, probably all of the above, but we got pretty bloody. And if we could get a little bloody for the people that are going after us to be a little bit less, that's been such a win for us. But at the end of the day, the biggest, there's so many stories that we have of guests that have become staff members because they love the brand so much that say, they email us a 2-page letter that says, I have to be part of this, I have to work for you, I just came as a guest and now I have to work. Like those kind of stories where people get what we're saying and get the community asset. So I love this place.
Yeah.
How about you, Bobby?
Similar answer to Nate. That gut punch that we were 40% over budget, that changed everything for our business model. So that was a low. That was like no words, look at each other. How bad do we want this? That hurt. The other thing that I think is just a painful experience was we formed the LLC in June of 2017. We knew that we were going to be operational in July of 2018, one year later. We opened our doors in 2021. So there are 4 years in there of suffering and misery and startup woes that it's not a single experience, but it is a good 3 years of life that we gave to this company, 80 to 100 hours a week for 3 years. That is just hard. And it wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have done that. That's probably just a long low is the sacrifice that we made to our snowboarding passes and our relationships to make this happen. For me, there's kind of 2 huge happy highlights. Our Google reviews speak for themselves. The experience people have here, it's happening. It's authentic. They're being seen. They are recognizing they're part of the global family. So that guest experience is thrilling. To watch our staff walk in the door and to see who they are now a year later with the opportunity in front of them that they might not have had if they hadn't chosen to really invest and learn from this place, that just makes me so proud that our staff are growing and learning and developing in ways that are going to help them and help the world. And then finally, community is a huge part of us. We are here first and foremost for the local community, so we take a hit on a lot of events that we host because we know that this community needs a space to connect. So for me, our Get Outdoor events, where we invite our hotel guests, we invite travelers, but we primarily invite the community to come into this space, drink free beer, hear from local experts about how to engage the outdoors in the Pikes Peak region in ways that are sustainable, healthy, leave no trace principles. We're going to interact with those mountains for a long time, and we've got to up the level of stewardship that we bring to them. So those community events where this place, that little cocktail of locals and travelers and education and stewardship and ownership, those are a real delight for me as well. We've got one coming up on the 26th with Pete Lardy, and so it's going to be a good time.
Do anybody have any questions before we wrap up? Yeah.
How did you come up with the concept of the camping room?
Yeah. How'd you come up with?
Really cool.
How'd you come up with the concept of the camping room?
Yeah, we were, one of the first things that we did when we were developing this concept, we would get in our friend's living room and we would just talk. We would say, hey, what would we want to do that's really creative? And so we just threw out, I can't remember exactly who threw it out, but the idea of, what if the rooftop is this campsite that, no one I've ever seen in the country has a downtown rooftop campsite. And so we said, how cool would that be to have a room? At that point, it was the whole roof. And again, then we had our 40% over budget. One of the first things to go was our whole camping rooftop patio. But I think it's this little window into like how stupid and weird we are as friends, and like whether we, say it or not. Like, we believe that we can do whatever we want, and that's like one little like light that's shown on just kind of the quirkiness of this team of we're not a flag, we're not a franchise, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the hits of the whole project.
Yeah.
I mean, during the summer it's booked out like just constantly. We've had people staying there in negative 15-degree weather at times, just because they want to experience it so much. So just a team idea that we wanted to bring to fruition.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you. I get to brag about our values because adventure is one of our values, and we don't make money on that room. It should be a suite. It should be a private room, but it's really fun. And we're allowed. Like Nate said, we're allowed to do fun things.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So you're obviously not done here. You know, you've got still lots of growth to happen here. What other visions or things do you have out there that you guys are like, maybe that's a nice little flavor or a piece that you're shooting?
Great question. We got that question the first day we started raising capital. What's next after this one? And I'm going to give you the same answer we've given for 4 years. Our priority is to make sure that this place has every ounce of goodness baked into it. And so our focus is on continuing to develop our staff, continuing to refine the systems and processes in Colorado Springs, and to make sure we have a specialty project that is unique and true to this region. Our vision is that 100 years from now, a network of concepts surrounds the globe. I have no idea what those concepts are going to be, but I can tell you they're not going to be informed by us. They're going to be informed by local community members who know the taste and the needs of their local communities, and we can come say, here's some things we learned. Let's empower you to grow this concept with tools that we didn't have, but it's going to look different than if I were to go plop it somewhere else because we're going to find local leadership. That's our first step.
Awesome. Anything else? Yeah?
So, obviously, community is one of your core values, and what you created here is amazing, and you're very much giving, and your goal is to, do more for the community. At the same time, the community has to help you. So, what happened to things? How has the community embraced you to make sure that you were being as successful and be able to contribute back to the community itself? How's Colorado Springs embraced you?
How is Colorado
Yeah,
Springs embraced?
we have plenty that I know that Bobby could say, but we do talk about, like, this isn't our hotel, this is your guest house. Like, this, come stay with us, first and foremost. Be on the first floor, enjoy our amazing hand pies, our bowls, our sandwiches. Just be here and rub shoulders with the people that are staying upstairs as the community, because that's where there's, in the same way that there's this change when someone buys a house from renting a house for so long, you treat a house completely different when you're renting it than when you own it. And if we can instill that ownership from the community members that walk in that front door to the renters for the upstairs, and instill that ownership of the community, they're going to treat the trails better. They're going to treat the staff of the coffee shop across the street better, because they're now an owner, and they're not just a consumer of an area. They're not just a tourist. They're a fellow traveler in this world that we're all traveling through. And then again, we talk about, first and foremost, host people in your homes. Like that's where true hospitality happens, is, have them stay in your guest room. But, if you want the in-laws for one night and then that's about as much as you can take, send them over our way. We would love to give them a local experience, and consider us your guest house, so that you can really trust us with your community, and that we're going to give them the real connection to what Colorado Springs really is. Not just the Garden of the Guns that everybody sees, or all of the same trails that everybody goes on, but we're going to open up the curtain behind what the local experience is.
Yeah. How has the community embraced you? What do you think, Bobby?
How has the community embraced
Yeah,
us?
Kinship.
Yeah. Nate said everything I was going to say.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, people who choose to be here, that's why we're special. We have beautiful design. We have incredibly comfortable beds. We have locally sourced, healthy food for people who are hungry. But that is all things that you can find elsewhere. What makes this place special is you choosing to be here today in this space, inhabiting it, and giving it life and texture and story. So when locals choose to be here, that's the one thing that makes this special, because someone from India or Pakistan or Ecuador comes here, they get to interact with you. And that's important to the modern traveler, is insertion into the local scene. Like Nate said, consider us your guest house. We built this hotel for you to be able to trust people that you care about with an overnight experience. And then the other thing I'd say is, host parties here. We have an event space, and we have a product called a hotel takeover, where, like an Airbnb, you just rent the hotel and it's yours. Every single room, every single staff, it's all food and beverage included. All the event space is yours. So I'm excited to see more and more community members see how efficient we've made that, how affordable we've made that for a nice family reunion or a corporate party or a sleepover or retreat. That's something that I think is going to be a gift to community members here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Thank you for coming. I appreciate Kinship so much and what you do to the community. As someone who sits in that little corner booth almost every day, I can tell you this is.
I think we have a special spot for
one of
her.
my
The
favorite-
staff just, Mac, just come by and
Just-
pour the beer yourself.
I know, totally. So, but thank you for all your questions, and I know you've got a baby coming soon, so I appreciate you guys making the time and being here. And how can people find you online? What's the website?
Yeah, kinshiplanding.com.
Okay.
Kinship, like family, kinshiplanding.com. We're also on
Correct.
Instagram, Kinship Landing. That's really going to be the best way.
Okay,
Instagram and our website.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thanks for joining Small Biz Real Talk. We're so glad you guys came, and thanks to ABC Bank for sponsoring it. And join us next month when we head to Bloom, Sweetwater. It's a little flower shop. Super excited about that. And thanks again, you guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mac.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.